You walk into a room and feel it before anyone says a word. The tension between two people who haven't spoken yet. The exhaustion in someone's smile. The particular quality of light coming through the window that makes the whole space feel tender and temporary and somehow worth noticing. You feel things first, then you think about them. And then, if you're anything like the person I think you might be, you think about them again and again, long after everyone else has moved on. Maybe it's the song that wrecks you every single time, even though you've heard it 100 times. The news story you can't shake for days when others seem to process and continue. The comment someone made 3 weeks ago that you're still quietly turning over, examining from every angle, wondering what it really meant. Maybe it's the overwhelm in loud restaurants, crowded malls, overstimulating spaces that other people seem to move through without a second thought. The way you need time, real, unhurried time, to come back to yourself after an intense day. And maybe someone, at some point, told you that you were too sensitive, too emotional, too much. I want you to stay with me today, because what you've been calling too much, what the world has sometimes treated like a flaw to correct, has a name, a science, and a quiet, extraordinary strength behind it. Today, we're talking about what it really means to be a highly sensitive person and why your emotional depth is not your weakness. It is your gift. I want to share something personal with you, something I've carried for a long time without quite having the words for it. I have always felt things at a volume that seemed different from most people around me. Not louder exactly, deeper. Like whatever was happening in a room or a relationship or the world wasn't just registering as information, but as something I had to feel my way through before I could make sense of it. I cried at commercial. I felt other people's disappointment in my body before they expressed it on their face. I needed hours, sometimes days, to recover from conflict, even minor conflict, even conflict that had been resolved and was technically over. I noticed details in spaces and situations that other people walked right past. I absorbed atmosphere like a sponge, the mood of a room, the emotional weather of a conversation, the particular weight of a silence. And for most of my life, I understood all of this as evidence that something was calibrated wrong in me. I tried to toughen up, to not let things get to me, to have a thicker skin. And every time I failed at those things, every time I felt too much in a moment that seemed to require feeling less, I added it to the quiet evidence that I was, in some way, more fragile than I should be. What I didn't know, what nobody had ever told me, was that what I was experiencing had a name, that it was documented, researched, understood, that roughly 1 in 5 people share this particular wiring, and that the very traits I had been trying to eliminate were, in the right light, some of the most valuable things about me. That knowledge didn't fix everything, but it changed the story. And changing the story changed everything. Let's talk about what being a highly sensitive person actually means, in real, human, research-grounded terms. What an HSP actually is. The term highly sensitive person was coined by psychologist Dr. Elaine Aron in the early 1990s, following her landmark research into a trait she called sensory processing sensitivity, or SPS. Through extensive research, including surveys, interviews, and eventually brain imaging studies, Aron identified that approximately 15 to 20% of the population carries this trait. And crucially, it appears in roughly equal distribution across genders and has been observed in over 100 animal species, suggesting it is a genuine evolutionary adaptation rather than a cultural or psychological quirk. What defines an HSP, according to Aron's research, is captured in the acronym DOES. D. Depth of processing. HSPs process information more thoroughly and deeply than the average person. Before responding, deciding, or acting, they have already run the information through multiple layers of reflection and consideration. O. Overstimulation. Precisely because of that deep processing, HSPs reach a threshold of overwhelm more quickly. A busy day, a loud environment, socially intense event, each takes more out of an HSP than it would someone without the trait. E. Emotional reactivity and empathy. HSPs feel their own emotions more intensely and are significantly more attuned to the emotions of others. They notice subtleties. They pick up on what isn't being said. S. Sensitivity to subtleties. HSPs notice things, details in environments, changes in tone, emotional undertones that non-HSPs often miss entirely. This is not a disorder. It is not a diagnosis. It is a trait like being left-handed or having perfect pitch, a particular way the nervous system is configured to receive and process the world. What's happening in the brain? Here is where the science becomes genuinely remarkable. In 2014, Dr. Aaron, along with neuroscientist Dr. Arthur Aaron and colleagues, published a landmark brain imaging study using fMRI technology. What they found was striking. When shown images of emotional content, particularly images of their romantic partners expressing either positive or negative emotions, HSPs showed significantly greater activation in brain regions associated with awareness, empathy, and action planning compared to non-HSPs. Specifically, the insula, a region associated with self-awareness and the experience of emotions, and the mirror neuron system, which underlies our capacity for empathy and emotional resonance with others, both showed heightened activity in HSP brains. In plain language, the HSP brain is doing more work, more noticing, more feeling, more integrating, not because something is broken, but because it is wired for a particular kind of depth and responsiveness. Additionally, research by Dr. Jadzia Jagielowicz found that HSPs show more detailed processing of visual scenes, picking up on subtleties that non-HSPs simply don't register. Their brains are, quite literally, taking in more of the world. This has a cost: the overstimulation and exhaustion that HSPs know well. But it also has extraordinary gifts: deeper empathy, richer aesthetic experience, more nuanced understanding of people and situations, and a particular capacity for creativity that comes from processing the world at depth. The cultural context. Sensitivity in a world that values toughness. Here is something worth naming with clarity and without bitterness. We live in a culture that has historically pathologized sensitivity. The messages begin early. Don't cry. Toughen up. Don't take it so personally. You're too sensitive. These messages are delivered, usually without malice, by parents, teachers, peers, workplaces, all operating within a cultural framework that equates emotional expressiveness with weakness and emotional containment with strength. Researcher Brené Brown has documented extensively how this cultural suppression of vulnerability, which HSPs experience not as a choice but as their natural state, creates not strength but disconnection. The armor we build against our own sensitivity, she argues, also keeps out the very experiences of connection, creativity, and joy that make life meaningful. And yet, cross-cultural research tells a different story about sensitivity. In several East Asian cultures, Sensitivity and thoughtfulness are culturally valued traits associated with wisdom, attunement, and relational intelligence. The Western conflation of emotional depth with weakness is not universal. It is cultural, and culture can be questioned. Author and researcher Dr. Ted Zeff, who has studied HSPs across multiple cultures, found that in cultures where sensitivity is respected rather than pathologized, HSPs report significantly higher levels of well-being and self-acceptance. The trait doesn't change. The story around it does. And that story makes an enormous difference. The gifts hidden inside the sensitivity. Let me name something directly, because I think HSPs need to hear it stated clearly, not just implied. Your sensitivity is not a consolation prize. It is not the thing you get instead of being strong. It is a genuine, documented, evolutionarily preserved set of capacities that the world and the people in your life are better for. HSPs tend to be among the most conscientious people in any environment. They notice when things aren't right, they care about getting things right, they hold a standard of quality and integrity that reflects their depth of processing. They tend to be extraordinarily creative. Research consistently links sensory processing sensitivity with heightened aesthetic sensibility, artistic expression, and innovative thinking. They are typically exceptional listeners, not waiting for their turn to speak, but genuinely receiving what the other person is communicating, including what isn't being said. And perhaps most significantly, the empathy that characterizes HSPs, the capacity to feel what others feel, to hold space for pain without flinching away from it, to be present in the full emotional complexity of human experience, that is one of the rarest and most needed things in the world. Dr. Elaine Aron herself has noted that in traditional societies, HSPs often served as advisors, counselors, and healers, precisely because their depth of perception and their empathic attunement made them uniquely capable of understanding what others needed and seeing what others missed. You are not too much. You are, in the most precise sense of the phrase, exactly enough. So how do we live well as an HSP? Not by dimming the sensitivity, but by learning to carry it wisely. Here are 4 gentle, research-grounded practices. 1. Name the trait and mean it. The first and perhaps most important practice is this: stop treating your sensitivity as an apology and start treating it as information. When you notice you're overwhelmed, don't immediately push through and berate yourself for not coping better. Instead, name it. My nervous system is processing a lot right now. That's not weakness. That's my wiring doing what it does. That small act of naming, of identifying the experience accurately rather than critically, shifts the relationship from self-criticism to self-knowledge. Dr. Aron's research consistently shows that HSPs who understand and accept the trait report significantly higher well-being than those who are unaware of it or who treat it as a flaw. Awareness is not just comforting, it is clinically meaningful. It changes outcomes. 2. Build a rhythm of genuine recovery. Because HSPs process everything more deeply, they also need more recovery time than the average person. And this is not laziness or avoidance, it is physiological necessity. Think of it like this: if your nervous system is running a more sophisticated, more detailed processing program than average, it draws more power. It needs more time to reset. A full social day, a high-stimulation environment, an emotionally intense conversation. Each of these requires genuine downtime to process and integrate. A gentle practice. Begin building non-negotiable recovery time into your daily and weekly rhythms. Not time to be productive, not time to catch up. Time that is genuinely, intentionally quiet, with low stimulation, low demand, and permission to simply be. For many HSPs, This feels indulgent at first. It is not. It is the maintenance your particular nervous system requires to function at its best. 3. Curate your environment with intention. HSPs are significantly more affected by their environments than most people, for better and for worse. A beautiful, calm, well-ordered environment genuinely nourishes an HSP nervous system. A chaotic, loud, overstimulating one genuinely depletes it. This means environmental curation is not a luxury for an HSP. It is a health practice. Practical steps. Reduce unnecessary noise and stimulation in your primary spaces. Create at least one space in your home that is genuinely calm, a retreat space that signals safety to your nervous system. Be intentional about the media you consume, particularly before sleep, when the HSP nervous system is most permeable. Notice which environments drain you and which restore you, and begin tilting your life, where possible, toward the latter. You are not being precious. You are being precise about what your particular system needs. 4. Let your sensitivity be a contribution, not a confession. Many HSPs have learned to hide their sensitivity, to apologize for it, to preface it, to offer it only after extensive hedging. I know this might sound weird, but I really felt, or maybe I'm being too sensitive, but stop apologizing before you've even said the thing. Your emotional perception, your ability to read a room, to sense what someone needs before they ask, to hold the emotional complexity of a situation with care, is not a liability to manage. It is a gift to offer. And it is most powerful when offered without apology. A gentle practice. The next time you notice something emotionally that others haven't named, bring it forward without the hedge. Not aggressively, not as a performance of sensitivity, just clearly, simply, with the quiet confidence of someone who has learned to trust what they perceive. Because what you perceive is usually real, and the people around you are usually grateful, even if they don't always know how to say so. I want to stay here with you for just a moment before we close. If you've spent years trying to be less feeling, less reactive, less affected, less you, I want to offer something gently but clearly. The world does not need a quieter version of your sensitivity. It needs your sensitivity, tended well, offered wisely, no longer filtered through shame. There is a passage in 1 Corinthians 12 that I return to often, and I share it personally, not prescriptively. It talks about the body having many parts, each with a different function, and none less necessary than the other. Parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. That word, indispensable, has stayed with me. Not tolerated, not accommodated, indispensable. Whatever your faith or framework, I believe that is true of your sensitivity. That the parts of you that feel most vulnerable, most exposed, most different from what the world seems to want, those are not the parts to eliminate. They are the parts the world most needs. It just doesn't always know how to say so. And so, today's question, the one I genuinely want to know the answer to: do you identify as a highly sensitive person? Share your experience in the comments. Tell me what it has cost you. Tell me what it has given you. Tell me the moment you first realized you might be wired differently and what that realization felt like. This community holds space for all of it. And your story, shared honestly, might be exactly what someone else needs to finally stop apologizing for theirs. We started today with that particular way you move through the world. feeling things first, noticing everything, carrying what others set down, taking longer to come back to yourself after the world has been loud. And maybe that still feels like a lot. That's okay. Understanding your sensitivity doesn't make it lighter overnight. But I hope, genuinely, that something we explored together today has made it feel less like a flaw you're carrying and more like a frequency you're learning to honor. You are not too much. You are not too sensitive. You are not too emotional or too deep or too affected by a world that moves too fast and feels too sharp. You are an HSP. And that means, with the right understanding, the right rhythm, the right self-compassion, you are capable of a quality of presence, of empathy, of creativity, of connection that the world is genuinely richer for. Your depth was never the problem. It was always the gift. Thank you for spending this time here today. If this video reached something in you, please like it and subscribe to Soul Spa HQ. It helps this gentle space find more people who need it. And if someone in your life has ever been told they're too sensitive, share this with them. It might be the first time anyone has told them that their sensitivity is something worth keeping. More gentle conversations like this one are waiting for you here on identity, on anxiety, on the quiet struggles that deserve to be understood. Your depth is not damage. It never was. And you are always welcome here. Thank you, and I am grateful for you being you.